I was subjected to sexual assault. The thing is, I was a virgin and I also had the FGM procedure done. And bear in mind, that was type 3. So, hello everyone. My name is Shamsa, and today we're going to be discussing FGM ahead of the International Day of Zero Tolerance for FGM. You might be wondering, what is FGM? FGM stands for female genital mutilation. Female genital mutilation is a very sensitive topic. So, trigger warning, guys. I know myself firsthand the importance of talking about FGM and ensuring that it never happens to any girl, no matter where she is in the world. FGM is a procedure where a woman's genitals or vagina is either cut, injured, or changed in some way. It is believed to have originated from Egypt during the slave trade, where they used to take young black slaves and perform FGM in order to prevent assaults, to prevent them getting married, to prevent them from having any sexual intercourse before they can be sold, or they lose value if they're not virgins. So it was to keep their virginity, to preserve that. Others believe that FGM did not originate from Egypt, but it did originate from sub-Saharan Africa when Islam was introduced. And there are others who believe that it is an Islamic practice. However, I would have to disagree. Being a Muslim woman myself, I know that FGM is no way okay in Islam. It is no way acceptable in Islam. The purpose of FGM is quite simple. It's practiced in order to dim the desires of young girls and women. It is used to control their sexuality. It is done so that they don't have sex before marriage and so that they can stay pure, whatever that means. As a survivor of FGM, I cannot stress to you how much I dislike the name FGM. The reason for this is it stands for female genital mutilation. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind the F, female, nor do I mind the G, genitals. But what I do mind is being labeled as mutilated and having hundreds and thousands, millions of women labeled as mutilated. It contributes to their mental health problems, it contributes to their insecurities, and it contributes to their trauma. So for that reason, I today will be using the term FGC, which stands for female genital cutting. Makes sense, right? There are 4 types of FGC or FGM. Type 1 is the part removal or the full removal of the clitoris. Type 2 is the part removal or the full removal of the clitoris, the inner labia, which is the lips that surround the vagina, and sometimes it can also be the removal of the labia majora, which is the bigger outer lips of the vagina. Type 3 is the part removal of the clitoris and also sealing the vagina opening together and leaving a small hole for urination and for young girls to have their period. Type 4 is any harmful procedure to female genitals, which can include pricking, piercing, cutting, scraping, and burning. Mustn't do. Unless you want to pierce it. Then it's your choice. Okay? FGM or FGC, as I would like to call it, is actually illegal in most countries. Most civilized countries, it is illegal. For some countries, there are just simple laws put in place to prevent people from practicing it. I know in the UK, there's a law called the Prohibition of Female Circumcision, 1985, that makes it a crime for anybody who is or isn't a British citizen that lives in the UK to practice FGM, whether they're in the country or whether they're taking the person they're subjecting it to out of the country. You're not allowed. If you do, you could get up to 14 years in prison. And you know what? I agree with that. Although FGM is illegal in most countries, it doesn't necessarily completely stop people from practicing. And there are some people who would argue that FGM has ended, and trust me, we would all love for that. And that is the aim, for it to end and for no child, no woman to ever be subjected to such cruelty ever again. Somalia, I know, has a very high percentage of FGM. Is 98% of Somali women have it or have had it done. It has also been estimated that over 200 million women and young girls have been subjected to FGC, female genital cutting. And the sad thing is so many young girls and young women have died either during the procedure or after the procedure, or during labor, or during sexual intercourse. And it's scary to think that over 200 million women have had this procedure done. It absolutely breaks my heart. And it makes me so happy that we are talking about it and we are bringing light to such a horrendous practice, and with the hopes that one day it can totally be annihilated completely. I remember when I underwent the FGC or FGM procedure. I was 6 years old and it happened in a group. It was me and my other two female siblings, and one was, I think, a few months younger. The other one was a year older. And I remember my cousin going first and watching what was happening and scaring the hell out of me, to the point where me and my other cousin ran in opposite directions because we were like, nah, we ain't doing this. But we were brought back and we had the procedure done. We all had type 3, which is the part removal or total removal of the clitoris and the sealing together of the vaginal opening, leaving very small holes for urination and period. I knew very little about FGC or FGM before I had the procedure done. The way that they explained it, we Somalians call it guditan. There's some that call it hananes, and there's some that call it sunnah. But we used to call it guditan. And the way that it was explained, what it was, you're going to become a woman, you're going to be more respected, you're going to be accepted within the community. And young girls who did not have that procedure done in the little village that I lived in were shamed by old, young. They were shamed by everybody at school, during the playtime. They were being abused mentally because they didn't have the procedure done. They were seen as dirty, as less of a woman. But my thing is, why do I have to become a woman at 6? They advertised it as something really good, as something pure, as harmless, and it would be beneficial for you. Although I didn't understand the concept of becoming a woman, I knew that it was important to my culture, to my family, to my community. So I accepted it. I accepted it because it was a norm where in the village that I lived in, it was a norm in the country that I belonged to. So there wasn't really that much explanation going on. I just took what I was being told and ran with it until I witnessed it with my own eyes. I was not taught about sex in our household. We never spoke about it. I don't think anyone was comfortable enough to speak about it, to be honest. We didn't even speak about the FGC, FGM, let alone sex. But I remember, I think it was in primary school. I was in year 6 when I learned about sex in sex education. And I remember looking at a vagina and thinking, why is mine not open? Why is mine different? But I never thought that FGM or FGC was wrong. I viewed that they didn't have the procedure done, so they must be, dirty or whatever. But I viewed it as there was something wrong with them. I didn't view it as there was something wrong with the practice and what was done to me. That came a lot later on. Honestly, I wish I was educated on the relationship between FGC or FGM and sex. The reason why is although you kind of put two and two together, it's very, very scary to have to think about it on your own. Especially having type 3, which I had, and being closed for most parts, it terrified me because I thought, how is that going to be even possible? But I knew that I was not able to comfortably speak about the subject to my parents because it's seen as shameful within my community to talk on subjects like sex and FGM. I started my period when I was 9 years old, and the blood had nowhere to come out. So what ended up happening is it tore through my skin. So I started tearing at the age of 9 up to, I think, my mid-20s. However, when I was 18 years old, my first ever sexual experience was unfortunately through another means of violence, and it was very traumatizing and scary. I was forced into a marriage back home. I went to go visit Somalia, where I was forced to get married to my cousin, and I was subjected to sexual assaults. But the thing is, I was a virgin, and I also had the FGM procedure done. And bear in mind, that was type 3. So the only way to penetrate is by force, tearing skin. And it was just, it felt like you went through one traumatic experience, and then the one thing you feared actually came true. I was so naive about sex. I was terrified of the idea of sex, and the fact that my first experience was through sexual assault was not the best of experiences. And when it comes to the actual action itself, I was violated. I was violated. There isn't any more to it. I was violated. I was violated when I was 6, and then I was violated again when I was 18. And all of it surrounded my sexuality. It surrounded my body. It was something being forcefully taken from me. After that so-called marriage, which wasn't a marriage, ended, I was damaged, to say the least. I was torn through, and not only once, not twice. It was constant and continuous for 4 to 6 months. So my first experience of sex was not great at all. All I felt was pain, and all I ever wanted for it was to end. That's all I wanted, to end. The moment it began, I wanted to end. My second experience of sex was my second marriage. And I tried to enjoy it as much as I possibly could, but it was very difficult because I was traumatized. And even though I tried, I think I was probably faking it majority of the time, which is not very nice for the partner. But I felt as if I didn't know what else to do. But what I found out is it was my mind that was stopping me. It was my bad experience. It was the trauma after trauma after trauma that blocked my mind of any type of experience, any type of sexual pleasure. I did not allow myself to do it. The reason why is because my first experience was through rape. So I just didn't feel like enjoying it. My first experience of sex, I hated my body. I hated myself. I hated everything about me. And I felt as if the whole world hated me as well. But in my second marriage, I thought, you need to open yourself up a little bit more. You need to, and as much as I tried, it was really, really, really difficult. It was really difficult. I have never been to therapy. I have never sought help ever because I never felt comfortable enough. Who the hell wants to go into a doctor or a gynecologist and say, I am mutilated? Nobody wants to do that. I had the most gorgeous little girl out of my second marriage, and she is the one thing that I am most proud of because she's mine and I created her. And no, actually God created her, but I helped. And it's just, I brought such an amazing human being into this world, and she's so much like her mother, and just sassier, which I love. Okay, I was pregnant with my daughter. Oh my God, the fears that I had, even though I was trying to get comfortable sexually, the fear of labor almost crippled me to the point where I don't think I wanted a child because I thought I'm gonna die. I'm going to rip. I'm going to bleed to death. Something is gonna happen. I was just terrified. When it was time to give birth to my little girl, let me tell you, I was terrified, first of all, for 9 months. The whole entire 9 months, I was terrified for my life. I was praying to God, please help me, forgive me, save me. Like I would say, I've never prayed so much in my life, okay? Because I was terrified. And because I was terrified, I got into such a massive argument with the midwife. Because after pushing for like 5-10 minutes and the head was out a little bit, I remembered that I've had this procedure done and that there's a possibility that I could tear left, right, and center. And because of this crippling fear, I said to the midwife, you need to cut me. And she looked at me dead in the eyes and she said, don't be silly, you're fine. I said, excuse me, don't tell me. Because I don't think she clocked. No one ever notices. I don't know why professionals don't notice. So I said to her, you need to cut me. You need to cut me before I tear left, right, and center. I can't take it. Please cut me. She said no. So I said no as well. So I just kindly closed my legs together. And she's like, oh my God, the head is out. You can't do that. And I said, respectfully, I'm going to die. You need to cut me. And the fact that I even said cut me, even though I am a survivor of female genital cutting, listen, I surprised myself. But then I was scared of one thing. So I was like, let's deal with one trauma at a time, okay? Because I wasn't ready to add another one to my list. She agreed. I opened my legs. She cut me at the tiniest bit. It needed 3 stitches at best. And my baby was delivered. I enjoy sex a lot more than I ever thought I would in my life. The reason why is I think for such a long time, I convinced myself psychologically that I am not able to feel. I am not able, especially after my trauma of sexual assault. it just really added to my list of traumas. And what ended up happening is I convinced myself that I couldn't feel, because I had this procedure done, because I was told my whole life that I was never going to be able to feel, sex is never going to be the same. Sometimes I do wonder, is what I'm feeling enough? Is it supposed to be this way? But you know what? As long as I enjoy it, I'm happy. The long-term effects of FGC or FGM, female genital cutting, might include complications during childbirth, which I was terrified of, pain or discomfort during sex, regular formation of cysts, and the list is long. But there are also emotional effects. There are also psychological effects, where you have so much insecurities and you have these constant worries that your body is not your own and there's something missing. But let me tell you, you are a whole woman. No matter who tried to take what part of you, you are still a whole woman. Now that I'm a lot older and a lot wiser, I try to explore what I like, my desires, my hopes, my dislikes, what turns me on and what doesn't. And I think for me, a positive experience of sex is just knowing that you are satisfied, knowing that your desires have been met. And I can thankfully say that I have been able to orgasm. I am able to, get wet. I don't have any problems with any of that, because I removed that mental blockage that I had. This fear of sex and the way that I viewed it really had an impact on the experience that I was having. I have never received any treatment for my FGM. I don't think anyone ever noticed until I brought it up anyway, whether that be it a midwife or a doctor or a gynecologist. It would just, no one really paid any attention, to be honest. And I was kind of grateful, but any chance that I got with the doctor, I would ask this question repeatedly. Okay, it became like a really massive obsession of mine. And the question was, does it look normal? And then they would look at me like, and then look, and they'd be like, yeah, and they never noticed. And I was like, I think I needed a lot of help, to be honest. And I wish that medical professions took it a lot more serious. I know that now is FGM or FGC is considered sexual assault. It comes under sexual violence. But no one, I believe, in my personal experience, no one amongst doctors, amongst professionals, have ever treated it like that, or even asked any questions. And I've always found that as really bizarre, because there are so many charities and all these organizations, but there's so little done to help survivors or victims of FGM. I think the most important thing that I learned about sex and me body is that it is mine. It is mine to do as I wish, and nobody else, whether it's a parent, whether it is society, whether it's a man, whether it's a family member, your community, it doesn't matter. It is your body. So for me, it's just accepting my body the way it is now and loving it, and knowing that even though all these traumatic things have happened, that my body is still my own. It is still loyal to me. And it does all it can to still give me the things that were meant to be taken away from me, were intended to be taken away, but they didn't. I definitely learned to love sex, okay? I learned to enjoy it. I learned to not apologize. I've learned to accept the what I have been left with, to accept my body the way it is, to accept my mind the way it is, and to just be positive. And do not allow, from this point onwards, do not allow anyone to ever take that power away from you. They tried to take it. They tried to take my sexuality. They tried to take my decisions about my body. But none of that worked out because I own all of it. I own my body. I own my sex life. I own my brain. And it's only fair that I do what I want with my body when I want. My body, my mind, my peace. That is what I've learned. Apart from sex and labor, FGC or FGM affected me psychologically because I used to convince myself that just nothing was possible. It affected me emotionally. I had the worst mood swings. I felt like I was not a full woman, but part of. I felt like I was just not right. I was damaged. I was damaged goods, and it didn't feel good. It also contributed to one of my decisions in adulthood, most of which were not good. I was such a negative person, but I learned to train my mind and understand that my trauma does not define who I am. If I could tell myself anything when I was younger, I would tell myself I am, and you are, and always will be a full ass woman. You are complete. There is nothing missing nor damaged. You are perfect as you are. And although something has been taken away from you, you are strong enough to know that that doesn't stop you from living your best life. You don't have to live in that trauma. Understand that you will get through it. And I wish I could tell myself that you are the most sweetest human being in the world. And to any young woman or any young girl who's exposed or has been exposed to FGM, I would firstly like to say that you did not deserve it. You did absolutely nothing to deserve that. It was done by sheer arrogance and ignorance and lack of knowledge. It is not on you, okay? You are perfect in every single way. You were perfect before and you are perfect now. There is nothing, no part of you that is damaged, okay? And it is up to you as an individual to take that power back that was taken away from you by force, and embrace your body and embrace your sexuality and practice self-love, because there is nothing more important than self-love. And most importantly, FGM does not stop you from enjoying sex. It does not stop you from feeling anything. It doesn't stop anything. FGM does not stop you from exploring and feeling pleasure and orgasming. It doesn't stop you. There are surgeries and things that you can do in order for you to physically and mentally be able to enjoy it. So please, for one, seek therapy. Two, please seek medical attention. And if you feel like you are at risk of getting FGC or FGM, please either speak to authorities or speak to a trusted family member or speak to someone, because FGC or FGM takes lives, and this is not a joke. This is not a joke. Young girls have bled to death. This is not a joke. No one should be cutting. No one should be tearing. This is one of the most inhumane practices that I have ever seen in my life. It's not okay. We all have a responsibility to join in this fight and end it for good. Firstly, I would like the world to know that victims and survivors of FGC, female genital cutting, we should not have been and we should not be labeled as mutilated. That is not okay. Because what you are doing and what you have done to me is it contributed to my insecurities growing up. It contributed to my mental health problems. And if something, and as important as a label, is contributing to a victim or a survivor's mental health problems, then that name should be changed. Instead of mutilation, please, for the sake of victims and survivors, change it to female genital cutting. Call it what it is. Just a quick message to everybody, especially people who have not been subjected to FGM, and more so people who have never heard it before. Please, 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 if you ever get the chance to meet a victim or a survivor of FGM, please treat them as you would someone who was sexually assaulted. Even though you are curious and you really want to ask questions, those questions can come across as really hurtful, unthoughtful, and just invading, And the last thing we want to do is re-victimize a victim. Please have mercy on each other. Please understand that mental health is real, trauma is real, and our experiences are real. We have all got a responsibility to treat each other fairly and not subject someone to a label that they cannot relate to, a label that they have not chosen themselves, a label that is outrageous, in my opinion. We all have a duty not to re-victimize victims. And I believe by calling someone mutilated, especially a victim of sexual violence, that needs to change. We need to do better. Because the only way FGM is going to end is if we fight together. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. That is it for today. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, even though I know it's a sensitive topic, but we are here to educate each other and, increase each other in knowledge and embrace each other and have mercy on each other and just acceptance. Accepting each other is the most important thing as a society. So I want to thank you all for your time today, and I hope you have an amazing year. Bye.